Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about the valve stems on your wheels. This came up on my truck. Now I had 3 tyres out of the 4 that I thought were showing slow punctures. So they were losing roughly 5 psi a month, which over the course of a couple, 3 months is quite a lot of pressure. So I thought I had slow punctures. Having checked all the tyres, I couldn't see any evidence of a puncture whatsoever, no nails, no screws, which led me to going back and having a look at the valves. Now I was relatively lazy, I could have done this at the first instance and I just didn't, that was just me being lazy. So today I'm going to go through 4 ways that you can repair at home valve stems, and that includes the cores inside and the valve stem itself. Let's get on with it. So before we start on any of these fixes, if you like, what we're going to need to do is just to prove a point. Now here I've got a soapy water mix. This is just dish soap and water. Mixed down, give it a little bit of a shake, and we spray it all over the valve. And what you're looking for is bubbles forming around the valve base, potentially where the valve meets the alloy wheel or the steely wheel, or a little bit of saliva on your finger straight over the end and form a film, and you may see bubbles coming up inside the actual core itself, inside the gold core. That'll show you where your problem is. This video will show you 2 ways of repairing each. So before we start, there's a few things we're going to need. Quite essentially is a 4-way valve tool, available from most vehicle hardware places. It's a little tool, looks something like this. I'll overlay a close-up now, and this is probably about 3 or 4 quid. Definitely worth having in your arsenal if you haven't got one already. The next thing we're going to need, now these are optional dependent on which type of issue you've got, whether it's the actual stem itself or the core, and these are new valve cores. And then on the final fix, I'll show you something using the gasket seal. Now this, I've bought one here that does everything, so it's resistant to temperature, water, transmission fluids, antifreeze, literally everything, and it said it can be used on like gas pipes and stuff like that, sort of stuff with pressure. So I got that as well. That was only about a £5. That's the one we'll show you later. The first thing we're going to do is use this end here, and fix number 1 is literally just to tighten up that core. Sometimes that is all it's needed. So you twist the core, it's anti-clockwise to undo it, clockwise to nip it up. Sometimes, it's very rare that this is actually the problem, but sometimes there's actually a little bit of dirt in there or something like that, and it just doesn't seal properly. So if you do quarter turn, half turn to undo it, nip it back up again and retest it. That's fix number 1, quite rare. More common with the stem is actually that the stem itself is actually faulty. So again, you put your key in and you start to undo it, and you'll hear the pressure coming out the tyre. We've got to let all the air out of this because the core in the middle of that stem has got to come out. You can then simply take a new core, insert it in, and just tighten that back up. That's fix number 2. Moving on to fixes 3 and 4, which are, to be fair, the more common, and that is around the base. So if you're getting the bubbling around the base of the actual stem itself, between the base and the wheel, what you're actually finding is that rubber around the bottom is not actually sitting correctly. There's something in there, and that's not sealing up. Now on the truck I said I had 3 problems. One of them was actually a valve core, just needed nip tightening. 2 of them were this, and I believe it's because of corrosion around the alloy wheel. So where the actual alloy wheel meets this rubber band at the bottom, if you like. There's corrosion, there's bubbling on the powder coat, and that's causing the seal to be weak and actually letting air past. So what I found is an easy way to fix that is to put the core tool back on the valve, tighten it up as much as it'll go, put a little bit of soapy water again around the bottom of that valve, and literally twist that valve, and you'll hear it go. So be careful here because you don't want to split the valve. But if you keep twisting it like that, what I actually found on the truck that was the corrosion, the actual paint material was moved during this process, and it allowed the seal to sit good again. Obviously with a little bit of soapy water I could keep twisting it until I saw that that soapy water was no longer bubbling, and that fixed that. That only did fix it on one of the two remaining wheels though. And that is fix 3. Fix 4, very, very similar, involves the instant gasket seal. What you're going to need to do here is let all the air out of the tyre for starters. So the tyre has got to be completely flat, no pressure whatsoever. And then we're going to put the core tool back on the core stem, and we're going to push the stem back into the wheel. It will pop through, so what we're going to do is push it back past this little neck here, back into the wheel, so it's freely moving inside the wheel. It won't drop into the wheel because you've got your stem tool on there, so that'll just rattle about. Then what we're going to do is apply a very thin layer of gasket sealant around that stem, pop it back out and tighten it back up again. Let's get on with that. As I said, first thing to do, make sure there's no air pressure in that tyre. That's going to cause, any air pressure is going to cause that valve to be pushed back out. You want no resistance whatsoever. So make sure the tyre is completely flat. Pop on the tool, nice and tight, and just start to push that back in. You're going to push that valve stem back in, back through the wheel. Now, you may need something to start this off with. Trying not to damage the valve as you do it, and this can be a little bit tricky. But eventually, it will pop and it'll go loose like that. So what I do then is get the clear gasket seal, run a very, very fine lip of that around the stem. If you can get it down into the wheel, great. You don't need a lot, and you can tidy up after if you're messy. Put that in. Pop the stem back out. Should hear it pop. Give it a little twist. Tidy up that stem. When that's done, after it's set for a couple of hours, re-inflate the tyre, give it another quick water soap test, pop it back on the car, job done. And that's it guys, 4 ways that you can solve slow leaks relating to the valve stem or the valve stem core on your wheels. Hopefully this was of use to some of you. I'm hoping that somebody does get some value out of this. It will save you a couple of quid at the tyre shop. If in doubt with any of this stuff, do take it to the tyre guys, they'll sort it out straight away. This does work with valves with TPMS on them. That's what's on my truck, and that did work. All 4 of these will work on TPMS sensors. Needless to say, if you've got an actual issue with the valve stem itself, as in it's split or it's ripped or anything like that, then obviously you're going to have a really flat tyre anyway, but that, you can't fix that at home really without breaking the bead on the tyre. So you're going to have to get that done at a tyre place unless you're confident enough to push back the bead on the tyre and re-inflate. So as I said, hopefully this was of use to some of you. If it was, please hit that like button. Please consider subscribing. I do quite a lot of videos around cars, detailing mainly, but some cars, Ford Ranger in particular. As always, thank you for watching. See you on next week's video. Goodbye.